International. It's time for the news.
In today's top stories, Algeria and Turkey have signed several agreements and memorandum of understanding covering various areas of cooperation following the official visit of Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan to Algeria, expressing their sincere political will to move forward towards close bilateral cooperation. Presidents Abdelmajid Tebboune and Erdogan underlined the need to put an immediate end to the Israeli crimes and bring those responsible before the International Criminal Court, noting that the establishment of the Palestinian state is the only definitive solution to the conflict. Qatar has confirmed the agreement on humanitarian pause in the Gaza Strip with an exchange of hostages held there for Palestinian prisoners. Hello and welcome on Radio Algeria International. I'm Jamal Osmani. Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan ended an official visit to Algeria on Tuesday evening, culminating in the signing of the joint declaration of the second session of the High-Level Cooperation Council and several agreements and memorandums of understanding covering various areas of cooperation between the two countries. President Erdogan was greeted on his departure from Algiers Houari Boumediene International Airport by Prime Minister Nadir El-Arbawi and members of the government. The official visit to Algeria on Tuesday by Turkish President and his talks with the President of the Republic, Abdelmajid Tebboune, provided an opportunity for Algeria and Turkey to underline their sincere political will to move forward towards close bilateral cooperation, especially as the High-Level Cooperation Council between the two countries is now of a strategic nature, Said Bougazi reports.
At a joint press conference with his Turkish counterpart following the signing ceremony of several agreements and memorandums of understanding between the two countries, President Tebboune described the visit of the Turkish president to Algeria as an important milestone in the relations between the two countries, underlining that the talks between the two parties had provided an opportunity to discuss bilateral relations in general and the achievements made together since the first session of the Algerian-Turkish High-Level Cooperation Council. The President of the Republic underlined that Algerian-Turkish relations are solid with prospects for further cooperation given the sincere political will in Algeria and Turkey, adding that trade has developed considerably in recent years, reaching over $5 billion in 2022, with forecasts of exceeding $6 billion in 2023.
ديناميكية في التعاون الاقتصادي والتبادل التجاري الذي شهد تطورا متزايدا في السنوات الأخيرة يعكسه حجم التبادلات التجارية حيث بلغ أكثر من 5 ملايير دولار خلال سنة 2022 ويتجاوز 6 ملايير دولار في سنة 2023 وأصبحنا بهذا مع أشقائنا الأتراك ثاني شريك تجاري في إفريقيا بالنسبة لتركيا والوجهة الأولى للاستثمار التركي في إفريقيا.
For his part, the Turkish president felt that the strategic character of the Algerian-Turkish High-Level Cooperation Council reflected the current state of cooperation between the two countries, the level of their relations, and their strategic vision, affirming his country's willingness to pursue efforts and take the necessary steps to strengthen its cooperation with Algeria in various fields. President Erdogan spoke of the volume of trade between the two countries, recalling the steps taken by the two countries to reach $10 billion in the future. We had productive meetings, we exchanged ideas on the measures to take in order to deepen relations, and we will keep a close eye on the projects to be implemented within this framework. Turkey and Algeria have maintained relations of friendship and brotherhood for several centuries. We expect our volume of exchanges, which has already reached a record $5.3 billion, to attain $6 billion. We hope to reach as soon as possible the $10 billion objective that we have set with my brother Tebboune by stepping up our efforts. In this connection, he praised Algeria's efforts to mobilize its economic capacities through the diversification of its activities under the leadership of President Tebboune, affirming the accession of nearly 1,400 Turkish companies to this approach. Expressing in this respect his country's readiness to increase the volume of investment in Algeria, President Erdogan felt that the signing of the agreement on the mutual encouragement and protection of investments as soon as possible will help to promote investment. To this end, the Turkish president spoke of the shared desire of the two countries to develop their cooperation in the field of energy and renewable energies and to diversify these through new partnerships, describing the agreements concluded between Sonatrach and Bottas as a good example of this cooperation. During his visit, President Erdogan co-chaired with Prime Minister Nadir Al-Arbawi the Algerian-Turkish Economic Forum. In a speech delivered at the forum, which was held under the slogan for a productive and sustainable economic partnership, the Prime Minister stated that this forum was a true reflection of the strong ambition of the two countries to create a strategic bilateral partnership focused on attracting investment, boosting trade, and promoting a fruitful cooperation between Algerian and Turkish companies as a way that reflects the historical ties between the two brotherly peoples.
The head of state said it was an opportunity to evoke the latest developments in the Sahel region, including the prevailing situation in Niger and Mali. He also said that the two sides talked about the issue of Western Sahara, stressing the convergent views on the two sides and their efforts to maintain stability in those countries in the region and the world.
اغتنمنا هذه الفرصة لاستعراض المستجدات في منطقة الساحل على ضوء الأوضاع السائدة في النيجر في مالي، وتطرقنا إلى قضية الصحراء الغربية كذلك. وفي كل هذه الملفات سجلنا توافقا في وجهات النظر واتفقنا على مواصلة المساعي المشتركة للمساهمة في استعادة الاستقرار لهذه البلدان الشقيقة وحفظ السلم والأمن في المنطقة وفي العالم.
Regarding the heinous Israeli aggression against the innocent Palestinian people in the Gaza Strip, Presidents Tebboune and Erdogan underlined the need to put an end or an immediate end to these crimes and to bring those responsible before the International Criminal Court, ICC, noting that the establishment of the Palestinian state is the only definitive solution to the conflict. Saeed Bouhazi again.
President Tebboune stated that the human tragedy and the appalling crimes committed over the past few weeks in the Gaza Strip demanded urgent action to bring to justice those responsible for this genocide against the Palestinians before the International Criminal Court. He also said that he had discussed with his Turkish counterpart the need to attach to the denunciation of the policy, the systematic repression, the crimes of genocide and forced displacement by the Zionist entity, an urgent action to put an end to the expansion of settlements and to repress settler terrorism against Palestinians in the West Bank, leading to the prosecution of those responsible for the genocide in the Gaza Strip before the International Criminal Court.
تطرقنا خلالها لملفات الملحة الحساسة وعلى رأسها ملف الشرق الأوسط بكل أبعاده وتداعياته وما يحدث منذ أسابيع في قطاع غزة من مأساة إنسانية جراء الجرائم البشعة التي يرتكبها الاحتلال الصهيوني وانعكاسات عدوان الاحتلال الصهيوني على الساحة الإقليمية والدولية. وأكدنا في هذا الخصوص على حق الشعب الفلسطيني في إقامة دولته المستقلة وعاصمتها القدس الشريف في حدود جوان 1967. كما جددنا التأكيد على ضرورة اقتران الاستنكار للسياسة والقمع الممنهجة ولجرائم الإبادة والتهجير القسري التي يقوم بها الكيان الصهيوني. أكدنا على ضرورة أن تقترن الإدانة والاستنكار بتحرك عاجل مع بعض يوقف التوسع الاستيطاني ويردع إرهاب المستوطنين الممارس ضد الفلسطينيين في الضفة ويقود إلى محاسبة المسؤولين عن الإبادة في قطاع غزة أمام محكمة الجنايات الدولية.
For President Tebboune, the establishment of the Palestinian state is the only definitive solution to put an end to the conflict in the powder keg of the Middle East. For his part, President Erdogan maintained that there will be no lasting peace and stability in the region without a just political solution to the Palestinian question, recalling that the creation of a Palestinian state on the 1967 borders with El-Quds as its capital is now inevitable. President Erdogan did not fail to welcome Algeria's sincere and firm position on the Palestinian cause. He underlined that his country under no circumstances accepted the Zionist attacks on the Gaza Strip, which amount to collective punishment and constitute war crimes. Targeting hospitals, places of worship, schools, places that should be protected, and forcing people to leave their homes is unacceptable, he condemned. In the same vein, the Turkish president insisted on the imperative to establish a ceasefire in the Gaza Strip as soon as possible and to open corridors for the unimpeded delivery of humanitarian aid to the region.
The Algerian president has indicated that for Algeria and Turkey, the Palestinian solution starts by reconciliation between the Palestinian factions, calling for the reunification between the children of the Palestinian people, all factions combined.
احنا كنا بدأنا قبل مثل ما ذكرها لي أخي أردوغان كنا متوقعين مش متوقعين الجرائم اللي هتوقع اليوم ضد غزة ولكن عرفنا باللي وتيقنا مثل ما تيقنت تركيا شقيقة على أن حل الفلسطيني يبدأ أولا بالمصالحة بين فصائل فلسطينية. وصلنا إلى حد كان ممكن يدينا إلى أبعد ذلك. مع الأسف توقفت الأمور ومش احنا السبب، الله شاهد. أتمنى إن شاء الله باش نعاودوا نسترجعوا اللحمة على الفلسطينيين كلهم بكل فصائلهم ونصل إلى فرض كيان إنشاء الدولة الفلسطينية في حدود جوان 67 وعاصمتها القدس الشريف.
You're listening to Radio Algeria International. This is the English service. As you followed in our top stories, Qatar has confirmed the agreement of a humanitarian pause in the Gaza Strip with an exchange of hostages held there for Palestinian prisoners announced earlier by the Israeli occupation and the Hamas movement. It said Qatar has announced the success of its mediation efforts undertaken with Egypt and the United States, which have led to an agreement for a humanitarian pause. Said Bougazi has the details.
Qatar said that the start of this pause will be announced in the next 24 hours and will last 4 days with the possibility of an extension. Qatari diplomacy confirmed the details of the agreement revealed earlier by the belligerents, the release of 50 civilian women and children currently detained in the Gaza Strip in exchange for the release of a number of Palestinian women and children held in Zionist prisons. The number of people released will be increased in subsequent stages of the implementation of the agreement, assured the Qatari Foreign Ministry. In addition, the humanitarian pause will allow the entry of a greater number of humanitarian convoys and emergency aid, including fuel, as Gaza faces a total siege imposed by the Zionist entity, according to the same source. The Zionist government had earlier given the green light to the agreement aimed at obtaining the release of 50 hostages in exchange for the Palestinian prisoners and a truce in the Gaza Strip. The agreement was confirmed by the Hamas movement. Close to both Hamas and the United States, Qatar has been eagerly awaited in the negotiations in recent weeks, despite the fact that the Emirate has no official diplomatic relations with the Zionist entity. We hope that this truce will lead to a comprehensive and lasting agreement that will put an end to the war, reacted the Qatari Minister of Foreign Affairs, Mohammed bin Abdurrahman Al Thani.
The Secretary General of the Executive Committee of the Palestine Liberation Organization, PLO, Hussein al-Sheikh, said in a post he made on X that the Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas and the leadership welcome the truth agreement, appreciating the efforts made by Qatar and Egypt. Now, the President of the Arab Parliament, Abdel Assoumi, has announced that his institution will soon file a complaint on behalf of the Arab people before the International Criminal Court (ICC) against the Zionist entity for crimes and genocide against the Palestinian people in Gaza and the occupied West Bank, targets of an uninterrupted Zionist aggression since October 7th. At a press conference in Cairo attended by the deputy representing the State of Palestine at the Arab League, Mohamed El Aklouk, Adel Al-Assoumi unveiled the Arab Parliament's plan for action to force the Zionist entity to put an end to its abject aggression against the Palestinian people, announcing that filing a complaint with the ICC will be the first step. Meanwhile, the United Nations International Children's Emergency Fund, UNICEF, has indicated that around 800,000 children have been displaced in Gaza, victim of a blockade and barbaric Zionist aggression since October 7th. More with Mariam Barshi.
During a conference held in Geneva, Switzerland, UNICEF spokesman James Elder declared that as long as the restrictions on the access to drinking and sanitation water continue in Gaza, there will be a tragic increase of the number of children who die. The rainy season has started and the children run a serious risk of massive epidemic, warned James Elder, adding that more than 5,350 Palestinian children have been killed and around 800,000 others have been displaced. For his part, the spokesman for the World Health Organization (WHO), Christian Lindmeier, declared that a child dies every 10 minutes in Gaza. Since October 7, date of the beginning of the Zionist aggression, there have been 72,000 cases of upper respiratory tract infections, 1,021 cases of chickenpox, and 17,000 skin infections. More than 2,000 patients are affected by cancer and more than 1,000 others are in need of dialysis to survive, according to the UN official. 50,000 patients suffering from cardiovascular diseases and more than 60,000 diabetes patients are at risk. It is also estimated that there are 50,000 pregnant women in Gaza, and many among them will deliver with no experience personnel. Arif Hussein, chief economist at the UN World Food Programme, who attended the online conference, also declared that the whole population of Gaza, 2.2 million, is in need of humanitarian aid and 1.6 million persons have been displaced.
At a noon briefing by Deputy Spokesperson for the UN Secretary-General Farhan Haq evoked the latest development in the Gaza Strip and the deteriorating humanitarian situation there.
Yesterday, about 40 trucks carrying medical equipment alongside 180 doctors and nurses entered Gaza from Egypt. This equipment and medical personnel are intended for the establishment of a second Jordanian field hospital in Khan Yunis, southern Gaza, with a capacity of 150 beds. Also yesterday, the Indonesian hospital in Betlaya in North Gaza came under attack, reportedly resulting in at least 12 fatalities, including patients and their companions, alongside many injuries. This is the fifth time the hospital has been hit since the start of hostilities. Hospitals and medical personnel are specifically protected under international humanitarian law, and all parties to the conflict must ensure that their protection. Hospitals must not be used to shield military objectives from attack. The humanitarian coordinator for the occupied Palestinian territory, Lynn Hastings, yesterday appealed to all parties to the conflict to protect Palestinian and Israeli children and their rights. As of the 10th of November, 4,506 Palestinian children were killed, and about 1,500 have been reported missing, according to the Ministry of Health in Gaza. The UN Relief and Works Agency reports that as of the 19th of November, nearly 930,000 internally displaced persons are now sheltering in 156 UNRWA installations across all 5 governorates of the Gaza Strip, including in the north.
Gangs of Israeli settlers have violently attacked Palestinian olive pickers in the village of El Yanoun, south of Nablus. The Zionist settlers, using their weapons, terrorized the Palestinian farmers and prevented them from leaving. Israeli settlers frequently commit acts of violence against Palestinians with the full support of the occupation forces. These acts of violence include burning property and mosques, throwing stones, uprooting crops and olive trees, and attacking homes. In violation of international law, more than 600,000 Zionists have settled in illegal settlements in East Al-Quds and the occupied West Bank. Still in the West Bank, 5 Palestinians were reportedly killed and many others injured earlier today when a Zionist occupation army drone bombed a house and gatherings of civilians in the refugee camp of Tul Karam, north of the occupied West Bank. Now, the leader of the Irish political party Sinn Féin's Mary Lou MacDonald said Ireland must refer Israel to the International Criminal Court.
Israel's relentless onslaught means in Gaza nowhere is safe. Not even babies are safe. Newborn babies have died because incubators stopped working. On Sunday, 31 premature babies were evacuated from the decimated Al-Shifa hospital to Egypt. That these vulnerable babies could be considered the lucky ones speaks to the utter depravity of this onslaught. 13,500 Gazans have been slaughtered. Nearly 6,000 are missing. Entire Palestinian families wiped out. Entire neighbourhoods and communities wiped from the face of the earth. Generations erased. Having already been forced south, they are now being ordered to move again. Where do they go, Taoiseach? The Irish government must hold Israel to account. The South African government and others have referred Israel to the International Criminal Court. Ireland must do the same.
Ms. MacDonald also called on the Irish government to formally recognise the State of Palestine and to introduce sanctions against Israel.
The Spanish government and the Norwegian Parliament are moving to formally recognise the Palestinian state. Ireland must do the same. The Belgian government has called for sanctions against Israel. Ireland must do the same. Israel must be held to account, and we need a ceasefire now. We need a deal to secure the release of all hostages now. We hope that Irish girl Emily Hand will be finally returned safely to her family. Aid must be let into Gaza immediately. People need food, water, medicines and fuel urgently. The onslaught and the siege must end. This is what the people of Gaza need to save their children, to stop the destruction of an entire people. The Palestinian nation faces another Nakba, catastrophe. The people of Gaza face annihilation, and the Dáil must stand together saying no.
South African MPs have voted by a majority to close the Zionist entity's embassy in Pretoria and suspend all diplomatic relations with it until a ceasefire is reached in Gaza and the occupied West Bank, targets of a bloody aggression since the 7th of October. The motion, presented by the opposition Economic Freedom Fighters and supported by the ruling African National Congress, was adopted by a majority of 248 votes to 9. The South African MPs referred to the appetite suffered by the Palestinians. And now next, a program by Said Bouazi.
In host countries, Palestinian refugees are for the most part dependent on humanitarian aid. The United Nations Relief and Works Agency for Palestine Refugees in the Near East, UNRWA, provides services to all those living in its area of operations who meet this definition, who are registered with the agency and who need assistance. The descendants of Palestine refugee males, including adopted children, are also eligible for registration. When the agency began operations in 1950, it was responding to the needs of about 750,000 Palestine refugees. Today, some 5.9 million Palestine refugees are eligible for UNRWA services. Nearly one-third of the registered Palestine refugees, more than 1.5 million individuals, live in 58 recognized Palestine refugee camps in Jordan, Lebanon, Syria, the Gaza Strip, and the West Bank, including East El-Quds. A Palestine refugee camp is defined as a plot of land placed at the disposal of UNRWA by the host country. to accommodate Palestine refugees and set up facilities to cater to their needs. Areas not designated as such are not recognized as camps. However, UNRWA also maintains schools, health centers and distribution centers in areas outside the recognized camps where Palestine refugees are concentrated, such as Yarmouk near Damascus. The plots of land on which the recognized camps were set up are either state land or, in most cases, land leased by the host government from local landowners. This means that the refugees in camps do not own the land on which their shelters were built, but have the right to use the land for a residence. Socio-economic conditions in the camps are generally poor, with high population density, cramped living conditions, and inadequate basic infrastructure such as roads and sewers. The responsibility of UNRWA in Palestine refugee camps is limited to providing services and administering its installations. The agency does not own, administer, or police the camps, as this is the responsibility of the host authorities. UNRWA has a camp services officer in each camp, which the residents visit to update their records or to raise issues relating to agency services with the camp services officer. The camp services officer, in turn, refers refugee concerns and petitions to the UNRWA administration in the area in which the camp is located. In the aftermath of the hostilities of June 1967 and the Zionist occupation of the West Bank and the Gaza Strip, 10 camps were established to accommodate a new wave of displaced persons, both refugees and non-refugees. The remaining two-thirds of registered Palestinian refugees live in and around the cities and towns of the host countries and in the West Bank and the Gaza Strip, often in the environs of official camps. While most of UNRWA's installations, such as schools and health centers, are located in the Palestinian refugee camps, a number are outside. All of the agency's services are available to all registered Palestinian refugees, including those who do not live in the camps. Today, Palestinians, Arab countries, and all lovers of justice across the world fear a new mass expulsion of Palestinians from the besieged Gaza Strip as a result of the ongoing inhuman Zionist aggression against the defenseless Palestinian civilians in the enclave launched on October 7th. Arab countries such as Egypt and Jordan have already made it clear that they will not accept any Palestinian refugees on their soil. As for the Palestinians, they refuse to go through another Nakba or catastrophe and say they are ready to die on their land.